welcome to Caesar's Snack Sandwich. Today I'm going to be taking a quick look at ALTD DeFi. Now, ALTD DeFi is another bridge, a multi-chain bridge to cross your assets from one chain to another. Now, one of the key things about this bridge is that they only deal with blue chip assets, so only specific blue chip assets that they consider to be safe. But there are some key things that make this different than other bridges, and that's kind of what I will get into and try to explain as best I can. I don't have a flowchart for you today, but I'm just going to use the docs and a few aspects that I've come across to kind of explain it. So, as with most bridges, you can supply assets to one side of the bridge, right? So you can supply some BTC on ETH or some BTC on Avalanche. And then if you do supply these tokens on either side of the bridge, then you can use them to farm the token of this protocol, which happens to be this here, this altitude token here. ALTD. Now, so if you farm this ALTD and you have some ALTD, you can stake them in here for governance token and a share of the protocol fees, okay? So this project was introduced to me by this guy, Cliff. This guy, Cliff, he hit me up during the holidays and I read through this and basically, asked him a couple questions and so forth, and basically got an idea of what this protocol is. So if we go over to the docs, as always, I suggest you to read the docs in full. It's not a very complicated and long read, so it would take you maybe 30, 40 minutes to read it, but there are some key things that I just want to highlight here. So as I said before, they focus on blue chip assets and they utilize LayerZero. So this is one of the things I've been putting off and procrastinating reading about what LayerZero is. So I will get into it here. I have the white paper open and I'll explain to you what how LayerZero works, because LayerZero is the key thing that makes this protocol different from other protocols, right? Now, there are fees, and the fees are important because there are two key things about it. So every time a user withdraws liquidity across chain, so anytime you bridge, you're going to pay a 0.05% fee, as well as redeeming LP tokens across chain. So if I put in ETH on Ethereum and it gets utilized a lot, and let's say I put 100 ETH on Ethereum and there's only 90 ETH there, so I can't get it out, right? So I can't get my 100 ETH out. But this project will allow me to redeem that extra 10 ETH on the other chain, so then I can take that ETH, get my 100 ETH on two chains. However, there's a fee when you do that. So if you redeem on the other chain, then you're going to be paying that 0.05% fee, right? And those fees are used to buy back the governance token and distribute them to the stakers, okay? Now, there is this other fee here, which is pretty good. And what this incentivizes is arbitrage of those two sides of the bridge, right? So it's called a rebalancing fee. So if you are pulling liquidity out of the side that has less, let's say there's 10 ETH on either side of the bridge, so let's say Arbitrum and Mainnet, and after some use case there is 15 ETH on Mainnet and 5 ETH on Arbitrum, right? So if you start pulling ETH out of Arbitrum where there's less, then you're going to pay more fees. And those fees sit there in a contract waiting for people to go the other way, to rebalance those bridges, and they get that bonus basically. So it's basically this is the clever as well, and this is basically incentivizing the bridge to try to maintain a balance of the two tokens, right? So they have this thing called the hub, and this is basically in order for there to be routes. Let's say there are routes through all the possible chains, then you would require different liquidity for every route. So instead of having this different liquidity for every single route, they've decided to use this hub thing where if you were to go from say Arbitrum to Optimism, then you would have to go through the Ethereum hub. So the hub is on Ethereum, and all the tokens go from there. So now if you go to here and you look down here and you see that every token does have an Ethereum side to it right now, right? For the most part, right? So Ethereum, there's an Ethereum, there's an Ethereum Fantom, there's an Ethereum Bitcoin. So, that's basically the idea. Now, this looks pretty new, and I've tried to like play around with the UI, and it doesn't quite respond the way I expect. So, if you're going to use this, go check, go ask, like make sure that this is live when you start checking into it. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was LayerZero. Now, this is what makes this very interesting, is it's utilizing LayerZero. Now, if you know how other bridges work, they depend on they depend on some sort of centralized service. So there's a chart here, right here. So there are 3 ways to bridge now, okay, with the LayerZero. So there's the centralized exchange like Binance, right? So you can send some BTC from, well, let's use ETH, right? So you send some ETH from Ethereum to centralized exchange like Binance, and then you withdraw that Ethereum on whatever chain, like Arbitrum or whatever chain is supported. So centralized exchanges can do this, right? And then it can also BTC goes in and ETH comes out, but you would have to then do that swap on that centralized exchange, right? And then they have things like AnySwap and Thor Swap, Thor Chain, and they do go into the details in here. So if you read this paper, you will get a pretty good understanding of the current status of the bridge systems and so forth. Now, again, so what this is doing is it's relying, what makes this decentralized system of like AnySwap and Thorchain not a great idea is because it utilizes a specific token. So for example, like if you wanted to send ETH from Ethereum to Arbitrum, it would send it through the Rune token, right? Or the any ETH token, and then it would swap to the proper token. So it requires another token as well as the validators or the messengers of that. So like AnySwap, there are computers run by AnySwap or by multi-chain that actually tell the other chain to do what it's supposed to do. So what Zero Chain does that these other ones don't do is they've made this semi-permissionless. And this is where it gets interesting. If we go down to their chart here, let me zoom in a little bit. So how this works, how this bridge works, is it utilizes two messengers, okay? So let's take a look at this. So a user decides he wants to send some tokens from one chain to another chain, right? So let's just say it's just a simple bridging, right? So the user sends his ETH to some, contract on Ethereum. That contract validates that how much he sent and the parameters, like where does it want to go and all this kind of stuff, right? And then it sends that data to this relayer. Now the relayer is run by LayerZero. Okay, so LayerZero runs this relayer, but this relayer could be run by other entities. Okay, so it sends that information like, what token, how much, and which chain is it going to, basically, right? And then it also sends that same data to the Oracle, which in this case is they're using Chainlink, but they could use other oracles as well. So then after this transaction has happened, right, then there needs to be some confirmations. And I think it's like 15 confirmations on Ethereum, and each chain will have its own independent requirements of confirmations. But after those confirmations are set, so like you send the transaction, it's done. But then, there are many confirmations that, yes, we agree. And then after those confirmations are done, that information is sent to the Oracle and to the relayer as well. And then the relayer and the Oracle send that information to the smart contract, the other endpoint on the other chain, right? So as you can see, I'm not explaining it exactly right because I'm trying to simplify it right here. So then the data is then validated that, this guy says, 10 ETH was sent. The Oracle says 10 ETH was sent. They say that it was finalized and good. And then it mints those, or it releases those 10 ETH on the other chain to this other entity over here. Perhaps it's probably the same person, right? But this could be a smart contract that's like, deposit tokens here and borrow tokens here. So like it doesn't have to be a bridge that LayerZero uses. It's just Altitude is using LayerZero to be a bridge. There are many other use cases that you could think of that they could do with this. And it goes into a few of them down here. If you go really far down, you can kind of talk a little bit. It talks a little bit about like multi-chain lending. Like think of it like if you supplied ETH on Ethereum and you borrowed USDC on Arbitrum, and then you went and did some degen stuff there, right? And then it talks about all the other opportunities like multi-chain aggregation and cross-chain DEXs, which is a cross-chain DEX is pretty much like a bridge. And then it could also be a swap as well. Like there could be some protocol that builds endpoints that have like swaps that allow for swapping. Instead of send BTC and get BTC out, you could maybe send BTC in and pay some swap fees and get ETH out and this sort of thing. So that's pretty much it for today. I hope this has been useful and interesting. I enjoyed reading this LayerZero white paper, and I will link to this in the description, and I do suggest you to read that in your own time and kind of get a better understanding of how LayerZero works in a sense of like why LayerZero is kind of perhaps the next step, because this relayer and this oracle is making it trustless in a sense. Like you are trusting the oracle and you're trusting the relayer, but they don't trust each other. So then it becomes trustless in that sense. Like these are not, they do not collude together. They do not work together. Okay. So that's pretty much it for today. And thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been useful, and goodbye.